Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns for day 29 of Around the League in 30 days as we wrap up the AL with the Toronto Blue Jays. My name is Tyler, my co-host for this one, Will and John, and our producer, Robert Morrison III. As we head up north to the Blue Jays, where a lot of the questions we have about this team is not what's on the field, but what is going to happen off the field with them, as they've kind of been one of the interesting teams in the league and a big chip in potential trade pieces, as we'll get into that with Vladdy and Bo, I'm sure, a little bit in this one, even though we've already talked about that ad nauseum. But regardless, let's look at their projected opening day roster for the 2025 season. Leading it off, Bo Bichette, as mentioned already, he had an absolutely terrible year in 2024, looking to turn it around this year. Vladdy, we'll see if he sticks around as he's already rejected a contract from them. Anthony Santander, the big name coming in. George Springer, batting cleanup. Andres Jimenez comes in from the Guardians in a trade. Kirk down there as well at catcher, one of the best framing and defensive catchers in the league. On the bench, Miles Straw comes in as a potential platoon option for them on the bench, but mostly everything else stays the same. And then looking at the rotation, which, to be honest, is not half bad, honestly. Barrios at the top, Gosman, Bassett, Max Scherzer in there as well, and Bowden Francis, who had a really, really strong last couple of weeks of the season. Their bullpen, Phillies legend, and also not sure what's happening with that arm, Jeff Hoffman, in their closing games for them this year. Dick Lovelady comes in as well. Nick Sandlin and Yimi Garcia come in to round out that bullpen. And with that, that is the Toronto Blue Jays I thought you'd like that for the 2025 season. Um, let's
That's
get
such an unfortunate name.
it really is. His parents knew what they were doing. So messed up, dude. Looking at the Jays in 2025, well, they did get Santander, they did get Hoffman, did get Scherzer, but the story again is they struck out on a lot of big name free agents. But even so, their roster doesn't look half bad for 2025.
No,
There
they
was
actually
always
look
time.
pretty decent. I don't, they're just, it's still a question mark to me in general, just because there's so much going on internally, and who knows what's going to happen if they suddenly start struggling in the first half of the season, if they decide to trade Guerrero or Bichette away, or if they try to hold on to them for the sake of extending them and what that could mean. As you said about Hoffman, there he got two other offers that he accepted, but then they were pulled back after failed physicals. The rotation does look decent, but Scherzer's already battling a little bit of a finger issue, and he was someone that was already kind of on. You weren't sure if you were going to get a full season out of him anyway, given his age, and he's been declining a little bit. I don't know how much depth they really think they have behind. They're like, I'd say about six guys, and right now they're already going to this a six person potentially. So I mean, the Blue Jays, I do feel like have the firepower to bounce back and be within the playoff talk. Though I don't see them being anything better than maybe a fifth or sixth wild card team. But it's also very easy to see this team see a lot of struggles again, whether it's Guerrero not being consistent for a full season. Again, like he was, I think, a couple of years ago, if not, it might have even been last year, because wasn't it like his splits? Like he was okay the first couple months, and then like June hit, and he became like the best
Yeah,
player in baseball,
yeah,
arguably
yeah,
for like
yes.
4 months. Um, and you have Santander, who just had a career year, so it's can he replicate anything similar power number wise? And Bo
No.
Bichette not bat like garbage. Bottom half of the order doesn't look that great. Rotation can be good. Bullpen has potential being good, has potential of injuries too. So I mean, you really just have to decide: are you going to go in that a lot of these pieces are going to click, and the Blue Jays are back to competing in what could be the last year of success for a very long time, or do you see them finishing last in the East and just being the bottom feeders of that division for the foreseeable future because they have no minor league system behind these guys? This is what they got.
Yeah, it's It's tough, right? Because there is a lot of people that are projecting them to kind of get in the mix again. But there's also a lot of people that have no faith, and it doesn't really feel like there's too much in between. There is, I think it all hinges on really what production you get from Vladdy again, and Bo Bichette has to show me something this year because last year was a travesty for him. In all honesty, John, they did acquire one of the bigger name free agents and Anthony Santander, and I know you're tired of talking about him not on the Orioles, but what does he mean to a lineup that really struggled offensively last year?
Well, in terms of consistency and in terms of on-field play, I like him at the plate. I like Tony at the plate. That's about all I could say. In all honesty, his batting average, he's a mid 250s hitter, typically, like on average. And then his on base percentage, he can get on base when he's not home run hunting. And that was his problem last year, was that he was home run hunt. If you're the Blue Jays, you have to expect him to be the 28 home runs, high 20s, low 30s home runs guy that he was. He's not going to hit 44 home runs. He's just not. I mean, yeah, you moved the fences in, great, but at the same time, Tony, he can't home run hunt, and I think that's what they're expecting him to do, and that's the problem. Is that, and this is the problem, honestly, with their offseason, is that they brought in a lot of guys because they keep missing out on these big deals. And they missed out on Otani a couple years ago. They're probably going to lose Guerrero this coming offseason. They missed out on Soto. When it comes down to it, I think that Toronto is what honestly Baltimore fans wanted, which was a team that just throws money out on the street and just says, "Hey, we'll sign you. You can do it. You can come play for us." And that's not a recipe for success. So, yeah, I think that they're going to be at the bottom of the division.
I, you know, well, I'll ask you this question about Santander because this Blue Jays team is very interesting where their offensive numbers are not very pretty, but they're a really good defensive team, which I don't know how much that accounts for. And then they bring in a guy like Andres Jimenez, who is a great, defensive second baseman, which is good and all, but you need that production on offense. So like Santander, it really feels what their offense is going to rely on is really him and Guerrero, and if Bichette can be, you know, at least a little bit better than he was last year.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it doesn't make me think that different than what the Orioles situation was last year. And that I would think that for the Orioles, your three main guys you look at are Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rushman, and Santander. And so it's not like he's in a situation that's completely different from that. He won't really have any protection behind him. So it really is going to be him as kind of a last resort, you would say. And then you got the rest of the guys in the lineup, which looks like leading with Springer and then Jimenez and so on and so forth. I do think that he'll be able to be productive and having someone like Vladdy hitting right in front of him. That's someone that you can expect to knock in a few times with a couple dingers. I agree that I don't think Santander is going to be the 40 home run guy he was last year. But I mean, I still think that he'll be what they want. I just don't think he'll be overall what they need to really get back into the hunt.
Yeah, again, I was just questioning. Like Jimenez is a nice acquisition on the defensive side, and maybe, that could be a great pairing with him and Bichette on again on defense. But they they trade a lot of offense for their defense, and it's not really worked out for them. And I just feel like you're relying on a lot of guys, like again, a couple guys to really carry your whole offense, which is really going to be devastating if they do end up losing Vladdy, which is what we'll get into next because this has really been the number one question in baseball for the past year. Knowing that Vladdy was going to be on his last year of his deal, this season. There was attempts by the Blue Jays to re-sign him to an extension this offseason, which what was the number? I think it was like what, five?
500.
Around 500 million. He
Yeah,
wanted 550.
which in today's game is not. I don't know. I mean, if you get the Vladdy you got in June and July last year, hell yeah, you're signing that. But like, it's crazy with the contracts that are being handed out right now. But
I will say, just kind of going on the salary thing for a quick second. I think Soto and Otani have really skewed things in a way that's going to cause a lot of discord between the superstar players and owners, because I understand usually a lot of players, when they enter free agency as superstars, they want not only sometimes to get the biggest dollar amount, but also kind of set a new market for players. And Otani and Soto have blown it to a whole nother level, which Otani as a two-way player is understandable. And Soto arguably is one of the best overall players and still insanely young is kind of understandable too. He got more years than Otani, which is really why in the end, overall, everything surpassed what the 700 million Otani got. But the problem I think then is now you're going to have all these superstars that are going to want something close-ish to that. And I think no one's going to balk at that. And that's going to cause a lot of teams in this situation right now to lowball what players want. And then they're going to get the free agency, and these talks are going to go into like February, and you're going to get more like Bregman type of deals in the end, where you don't get the years, but you maybe get the dollar amounts in like the 1 to 3 year span.
I mean, similar situation with Vladdy to Soto in the sense that he's still young. He just turned 26. He'll be 27 by the start of next season. So maybe he doesn't get as much term, but like Will, I feel like this is the same situation, right? Like I mean, and I don't know. I feel like 550 is even low compared
I
to.
think 400's too much for him.
But I'm saying I'm not saying what I think he should be owed. I'm saying what the trend is in baseball. Like if you want high end free agents, you have to pay absurd amounts of money. And like I guess my question is, all right, if Soto is at the very top, or I mean I know Otani's there, right? But as you said, Otani's a two-way player. If Soto is the very top for his age, what he produces, um, again, I think he is a little bit better than Vladdy in that sense, but I think it's close enough where you if you're Vladdy, you can kind of push up the price close to what he's getting in terms of on a year-to-year basis. Like I don't know if he's going to get the term that Soto did, but I just don't know, I guess, where it stops, because he's going to be the next guy. And I really think what's going to happen is after Vladdy signs his deal, then it's going to be really set in stone of like what guys are going to be signing for in the foreseeable future. Because, when Harper got signed to his deal with the Phillies, that was wild at the time. And that was
I was say I wanted to add a quick note real quick because I just saw this. So apparently uh the last offer that was made by I guess Guerrero's agent was for 15 years and less than 600 million. So I think 550, as John said, was kind of in that ballpark. So even the length of that contract is nuts
so like
too.
15. I mean, 15 years is a lot, because that what takes that would have taken him to
That'll
age
take him into his
39.
40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he doesn't want to leave.
I mean that. Well, I think if you're gonna ask for that
And he is
kind of money,
Canadian, right?
yeah. Well, he was born in Canada because of his dad. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
He is Canadian Dominican.
yeah. So, like, God, as terrible as this sounds, like I even think what's 15. What would that break down to? Like, how much a year? I can't do quick
Like,
math.
let's just say like
40
35,
something.
40.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean
Well,
that's
yeah,
a.
if 40 would be 600, so it's somewhere between 35 and 40.
Yeah.
I mean that's a lot of money, but in this day and age, I just don't think it's that crazy.
I don't think any of that's worth it. I don't think he's worth that many
I
years.
don't
think
either.
he's worth that much money. I don't even think he should be even close to the same conversation as Soto.
Yeah.
He's not been quite as he's been definitely a power hitter, because you can expect 25 and at his best 40 home runs from him, and he's got 2 years with at least 30. right now his 40 home run season he hit in 2021 and last year to me are outliers. Because out of the other 4 years, mainly I would think of what he did in 22 and 23. He's a 260s, 270s guy with around 30 home runs. And that's, I think, much more what you should expect, unless I guess he has another absurd year this year, but I'm not going to quite hold my breath on that. So I he's young, and that's the main thing he's going to have towards him. But my main thing, why I was just getting to the contracts talk, was I think Soto and Otani have just their contracts. Nothing against them trying to get what they got, but it's massively skewed what the market is for superstars, and I think it's just going to cause a bunch of havoc and disappointment for a while, because I don't think you're going to see people or see too many teams go into that area with some of the guys coming up.
Yeah. I mean, John, it feels like for a while you've kind of been under the assumption that he is going to walk. Do you see that changing? Or do you see them, depending on how their season goes this year? They talked about it last year, but does he finally get dealt at the deadline?
I think it really depends, in all honesty, business wise, whether or not they deal him at the deadline. Um, it if you're fourth in the division or fifth, or I mean even third, and you're out of it by the middle of July, there's no reason that you should keep him. You should honestly trade him, get what you can for him, and get prospects, because you have no farm system up in Toronto. It's ridiculous. And the same thing, honestly, with Bichette, but you're not going to get as much for Bichette as you will with Vladdy. Now, in the offseason, they're going to try and re-sign him. I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with the Joneses. I don't think they're going to be able to, you know, I don't think they're going to be able to match whatever team, you know, goes after him, because you have these big market teams in the US, such as the Dodgers, such as the Yankees. I mean, hell, the Yankees at first base right now are gonna be missing Goldschmidt, and Goldschmidt, you know, in is
Old.
old. Yeah, let's just say it. He's old. So, that's an easy plug in if you're honestly the Yankees. So
But I don't think it's
the
a money thing, though. It's never been a money thing with Toronto. It's the fact that
Well,
I think in Vladdy's
it's always a
situation,
money thing.
no, dude,
They've been willing to
they
dump money on
literally,
players. No one wants to go. No one chooses them.
because they
yeah,
have
because it had well. So I was gonna bring this up. So like, is this one of the few times where like, not in I don't want to call it an action on Toronto's part because they actually seem willing to spend the money, but it seems like a lot of the reason they miss out on a lot of big names isn't even because of them. It seems like the players
Yeah.
just don't want to play there for tax reasons, from a financial
Mhm.
standpoint.
Yeah.
Seems to be the big one. Because I really can't think of another reason. I mean, it seems like it's one of the few front offices that actually seem like they want to put out the money for it. They just don't get the yeses they want from anybody.
I think the other thing is just the uncertainty about their future, because
yeah.
I mean, when you have when the Blue Jays say we still have a future, we can lock down guys, we can compete, and then everyone else is kind of like prove it, and they're at a point now where they're in denial, it feels like, of what their situation currently is, and they want to hold on to that last shrivel of hope that, hey, we can do it, and like we're willing to spend the money. But even if they get that this year, with John, I don't think they're gonna retain Guerrero. Maybe they'd retain Bichette, but I'm kind of on the side that they're not going to get either. So I feel like regardless of what success you think you're going to have this year, you're going to be without that talent after, or I should say going into 2026. And therefore you're going to have this steep drop off, and then no one's going to want to be with you. And you're not going to have the farm system to replace it, because were recently ranked 27th in baseball. So they are basically, I mean, yeah, so maybe they're just kind of in a bad situation because they were getting good, but at first it was maybe, like you said, taxes was a big thing, as well as just, I guess, relocating to a different country. And then there's now the results that are now piling on with that already tax potential issue. And so the Blue Jays need to sell like really bad if they want to at all preserve any type of competitive future for this team. Otherwise, it could be as much as like 6 years before you even consider them again.
So
Is there not an argument? Sorry, real
More
quick,
than
Ty. Is
that.
there not an argument to be made though that like if they are able to keep Vlad, like let's say they pay the price tag that he gave himself that was previously discussed, like is it not then a more attractive place to be if they're going to long term sign a guy like that and they're going to
I
be able
do
to keep
think that would
somebody who
help.
could carry their lineup?
I
yeah.
do think that would help you, or then you're still going to have the same questions. It's just it's a little more enticing with the Guerrero there, and you just got to see who's willing to bite at that point, and then that'll be who you bring next. If Guerrero does resign, then I think things definitely sway a little bit more in favor of that. There is some hope in the near future. I just don't think he's going to resign. I don't think he's going to stick with it.
Yes, you got to think budgetary wise with him wanting a huge effing contract for a long time. How does that affect things in terms of something going after free agents? Because I feel like these were home run passes to try and get a ring before this happened, and clearly that didn't pan out. So
I don't
they
think they're
still have a
strapped for
ton of money
cash
that doesn't
though.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I don't think they're strapped for cash at all. I think they can kind of do, a few big market signings if they really wanted to. They just literally have to get the guys to say yes. So even if, Vladdy as a player isn't worth the price tag that he wants, it might be worth it in some cases to try to attract some of those other big market names down the line. Now, who knows? We'll have to wait and see what they decide to do. But, I could definitely see why he wouldn't be worth that tag.
I think it's, and that's why I said I don't think it's a money thing for the Jays or Guerrero in that sense. Of course, Guerrero wants to get his bag. I understand that, but I think for him, it's more of, if I get the money that I think I deserve, is this team going to put a product on the field that can can be competitive, and can they build around me? And I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I know like Rogers has a deal, or is very heavily involved in the Jays, and again, they've like kind of been like, essentially, here's the money, go spend it. And they just haven't been able to do so. And I think going back to before what you're saying about like taxes and stuff, like it is very true. I think there's a lot of reasons why they're unable to reel these big fish in. So for them, it kind of sucks because it feels like they almost have to overspend, which I don't think is necessarily a problem for them because it does sound like they have the cash to do so. But, at the same
it's not a
time,
good business
like,
model.
it's not, but at the same time, if you want to get those guys, you have to sign a guy like Guerrero. Now, talking about Bichette quickly, I think he's weird with this because obviously his year last year was so bad, and like I don't even know, you know, depending on what he does this year, like I don't even know if they'd want to re-sign him. I guess like if he's say he goes back to kind of like his career averages, is it worth for them to re-sign him? And is it worth them to re-sign him if they don't sign Vladdy? Like if Vladdy walks, should they just be like, all right, like, our window is kind of closed. We're just gonna get rid of these guys. We're not gonna sign them and start over again. I don't know. Like,
I mean, this
as
year is it's a big indicator as to whether or not on how Bichette performs, whether or not he's worth it. Because his average on base percent, his batting average is a career 290. That's pretty good. And is it superstar numbers?
Yeah, it's
No,
pretty
but it's
freaking good. Great.
anyway.
Really?
And then he has 93 career home runs. So, I maybe last year was an outlier, but if he suddenly hit a wall and doesn't know how to baseball anymore, I mean, this is a big indicator year as to whether or not he's worth it. And then at that point you have a big question mark
Yeah,
on
the
whether or
injuries
not
last
you
year.
think you can get him on the cheap. Um, but in terms of, whether or not Vladdy signing makes him worth it, I think that without Vladimir Guerrero, I think that question mark still stands. I think if Vladdy doesn't sign, you don't sign either. If Vladdy does sign, it's it depends on this year. If he plays terrible, then absolutely not.
Got 225 last year. This dude was invisible.
Yeah,
It's astronomical how bad he was.
It's a weird kind.
That's impressive.
Like looking at
It's
his
almost like
stats
he
now,
forgot how to baseball.
I mean,
21 extra base hits. Jesus.
it's a really tough conversation the Jays are going to have, right? Because he really has been amazing, to be honest, outside of last year, but he was so bad last year. It's and like a year before his contract year, I guess if you're the Jays, it's like now you're not sure if you want to sign him to a long-term deal. This is actually we've been talking about Vladdy, but Bichette is interesting.
I think that neither of them wants to necessarily sign ahead of time unless they get what they want. And that usually at this point, what the players get is well above what they're probably gonna get. So, I mean, this is the time where they get to kind of bid a little higher than they want, and teams will bid a little lower and see where the numbers go. The Blue Jays honestly are probably in the best situation to try and be a little dicey with it, and regardless, get rid of Bichette and Guerrero, and then if they then try to re-sign Guerrero. Like if you want to try to rebuild that system right now, you trade Guerrero, you get what you can for Bichette, depending on what he's doing. You get a nice haul for Guerrero, you rebuild that system, and then you immediately try to give Guerrero back that money. And then this way you can get Guerrero for the long haul. You got the prospects to try to at least get that system going again. You'll probably finish as one of the worst teams in baseball, and hopefully therefore in the top 5 in the draft the next year. And you can kind of set the pieces going for what can be the future. But I think I'm just too set on thinking that ownership is hell-bent that they still have a shot and that they can lock down Guerrero, and they're going to make too many risky decisions that in the end are going to hurt the future of the franchise.
Frankly, what you just laid out would probably be the best case scenario.
Yeah, because I'm smarter than that. No, it's also really risky.
The problem is it almost never works out. And I'm not even talking about baseball. I'm talking about all sports where it's like, oh, this guy has been around. Like, let's ship him out. We'll get like a nice package. And then like, he'll be a rental for this team for 3 or 4 months, and then we'll bring him back. And like teams are almost never signing them back. Like it almost never works out, it seems like. So
Blue Jays would pretty much have to have set in their mind, you know what, we're going to match his offer in the offseason, but we're going to sell him.
They'd have to exceed it.
They would have to exceed it.
Well, Well, like, if he wants 550, maybe they're going to 550 or 6. Like
I think it'd be like 6.
I think it would have to be 6.
Yeah, like
650.
I'm saying like
no 6.
I'm saying no. Listen. I'm saying if they let him get back on the market, I think that it's going to be a bidding war because he's going to be the premier free agent in 2020 in the 2025-26 offseason. So like if he gets there, it's and again the Blue Jays are like, hey, let's try to sign him back. I'm telling you, the number is not going to be 550.
But I think he wants to, no matter what. Is the thing. Like like the Blue Jays can do all they want to try to keep him. Right, he wants to
boost his value
records. Right,
yeah.
But so he's going to test it no matter what. Is my point. I don't think the Blue Jays in the end anything that they're going to do is going to keep him. So you might as well trade him, get the prospects, and hope you can get him back.
And if anything, he's gonna if he has another big season, like he bats 300 again and hits 30 home runs again, I mean, then he really solidifies how valuable he is to Toronto. So testing free agency by default is just gonna be his best option here.
Well, didn't he also say he's not negotiating anymore while in season?
I mean,
or even in spring
training? A lot
of
players do that. That would
I was gonna say. They want to just get to playing ball and they'll worry about it.
I'm just saying,
worry about everything else.
All I'm saying is if the Blue Jays let him, if he has a similar season to what he has last year, and the Blue Jays let him hit the market, I'm telling you, it's going to be more like 600 to 650 than 550.
Dodgers are going to offer him 725 off rip just because.
Then what do they do with Freddie Freeman?
I think they're the team that I would look at.
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot there. Regardless, that's kind of the big question. That's been the big question with the Blue Jays and the entire league. No, let's get into a few other things. Let us talk about. John, this might be a sore spot for you. We just talked about Texas, which you seen yesterday. We were talking about Old Yeller and Jacob deGrom. Well, here's Max Scherzer. All right. I mean, it's a fine signing, man. I think they actually have a pretty good rotation. He'll offer some veteran leadership for this team. But John, I mean, he's another guy that's pushing old as hell.
Old.
I mean,
He's pushing old as hell.
Old.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, career 3.16 ERA. The reality of the situation is he's not who he once was. He's not the Cy Young pitcher he once was. Can't believe Mad Max is being taken out by a thumb injury right now. In all honesty, this is, I don't know what this does. This does nothing for me. Like, cool, you got Max Scherzer. He helps your tickets, I guess. Like, that's about it. That's about the best I can say.
Isn't it sad though that like we're at a point in time now where Verlander and Scherzer and DeGrom are all like in their late 30s, early 40s? Like it's just so sad.
It's called time.
I know, and I don't like it. Okay, that's
Father
my
Time
point.
is undefeated, man.
That is my point. But well, again, this is not like a huge big name signing, but I think overall there is stuff to like about this rotation.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there are a lot of bright spots, and they do have the capability where they can be one of the top staffs if a lot of guys do what you expect. I would view Gosman as the ace, Berrios as second. Scherzer still has a capability of being a number 3, though he's probably more realistic of 4 or 5, and 5 is really just because of the injuries. But Bowden Francis had a really nice season last year with a 3.30 ERA, and I do think he's going to be on the up and coming, and he could in the next year or two even be considered for the Cy Young. So there's, and then in the back end after that, I guess, what is it? Who's the number? Oh, Bassett they still have. That's right. And Bassett, I think, is having him as a number 4 or 5 is nice. So I don't think they have much depth after that is the problem. The only 2 guys I've really noticed are Yariel Rodriguez, who had an ERA in the mid 4s last year, and Alex Manoah, who fell off the face of the planet and now is out till mid-season after having, I think it was a surgery of some kind. So they have the capability. They don't have the depth behind it. And I'm thinking it's probably a little too much to ask for this squad, but I mean, who knows? Maybe Mad Max delivers a little something as a veteran presence, and everyone gets on the rage machine.
All right, so
one thing that is a real aristocrat name, Christopher Bassett, Duke
So
of
random.
Toronto.
So random. All right, wrapping everything up here though. John, are you buying Pacoda having them 3rd in the East this year?
No.
As of course an AL East lover of yourself.
Yes,
No.
just a
He
lover
probably
of that
knows the
division. He
most.
actually has an AL East jersey.
Dude, that would be diabolical. Holy
Oh, I gotta figure out if I can get one.
AL East, but it's got like a different like letter from each of like the
Dude,
teams or whatever to spell out AL East.
I mean,
Stop.
those half and half jerseys are bad enough. Imagine it dividing
my-
into fifths, and
It's
also
a
having
quad.
having the
Or,
Red Sox and the
twin.
Yankees on the same jersey is
Putting them right next to one another, by the way.
that is war crimes right there. But you're not buying Blue Jay stock in 25.
Really
No.
good idea.
No,
What about
these guys are pretenders.
They're pretenders. All right. Well, what about you?
I don't see him as being 3rd.
Do you think the Rays are going to be better than them?
Yes,
Okay. We just did our Rays episode,
astronomically
too.
better.
Okay. All right. Bringing everything together now, but I think that is it as we wrap up day 29 of Around the League in 30 days, which means we got
more show.
We got one more. We're
And then
heading.
we're quitting.
It's like
No.
the worst team to end with, by the way.
That's all right. We're going from Canada
No,
back
it's
to the
not.
States, back to the capital, Washington, D.C. We'll be talking about the Nationals. Funny how that works out. You can follow us on Twitter at BL_breakdowns, Big League Breakdowns, everywhere else. Make sure to like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. As again, we are wrapping up our Around the League in 30 days. And I forget when we have it scheduled, but we are doing a full season predictions and standings predictions right before the season starts as we kind of wrap up here. But that is all for us. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time.